I think I now understand what a lot of people are scared of, or I would say adamant about, because it's come full circle in this whole conversation right now that there are people who want the old ways of gaming to be the same, but this is no longer going to be the case. In fact, what I think is going to happen is as many as can, do it will start transitioning to where they serve the consumer in a different paradigm. Gary Cullum, aka the Fox, put something up here that a lot of people have not taken into account, and I think really does spell something very interesting. He says, where there's smoke, there's fire. That bug where Xbox console games started showing up on the Xbox PC app was the canary in coal mine. Really curious how this plays out. And him citing Tom Warren, where he's citing AMD and talking about the AMD chips, which will go beyond just custom chips for Xbox consoles, but chips that combine the power of Ryzen and Radeon for consoles, handhelds, PCs, and the cloud. AMD says it's doing this with Microsoft, all with backward compatibility across platforms. Then we got more rumors that there's going to be some kind of a emulation program that is being in the works. This is a rumor, but again, smoke and fire at the end of the day. As a PC gamer myself, you might ask me, so where does this, all come into perspective? Well, check this out. This is my 6800 XT, right? One of my fun, and I think this is probably one of my better GPUs that I've ever, used and bought, and I enjoyed it. It was a very decent price and so on and so forth. Now, there's not really much that's going to match the power in the mobile side, but here we have the Rogue Ally X. This device here is what Xbox is going to leverage here in the coming future to bring its, thing where it wants everybody to be able to play their games wherever it is that they want, right? So at the end of the day, what you're going to see, ladies and gentlemen, is this vision where Xbox is saying you can play its games anywhere. I think they want to extend that vision also to hardware, where they want to be part of the suppliers of the hardware where you can play your games in whatever hardware or ecosystem you wish to. So here we are. We have the Xbox Ally X. I have the games that I wanted to go ahead and put on here downloaded. There are 15 of them. And you see a library that is all combined in one place. Xbox, Steam, you have Epic Games, you have Ubisoft, you also have Good Old Games as well in this particular mix. And if there was an EA game that I had here, it would also be downloaded and also be a part of this library. It's a unified library that would basically be able to allow for you to access your games in one place. Now, all, the conversations so far that we've been having about this have been really interesting, right? We've talked about how Xbox wants to go ahead and leverage a UI that's an Xbox UI. And some people have said, but what if you're not able to play your, Xbox games natively? I even saw somebody where, as they were talking about the news and the report of this new hardware piece coming into perspective, right? Or sorry, this new emulation piece, they said, well, AKA not native. Well, the reality is native has been this overrated talk for the longest time because if you really want to go ahead and leverage the ability to play anywhere, you actually have to, in many cases, abandon or at least put aside the native experience in some cases. For instance, cloud. Right? If you're going to play on the cloud, it's not a native experience. If you play on PlayStation Cloud or Xbox Cloud or, via Steam streaming, the experience is not a native experience. But it still affords you the opportunity to be able to play your games wherever you want to go ahead and play it. And so those people who keep saying it's not native, and if it's not native, it doesn't qualify, I have to say sorry, but I, basically have to declare you as full of horse manure, or you have to come to terms with the reality that play anywhere basically is more about your progress and progression, and Xbox wants to be at the forefront of it in terms of their games that they supply, and also in terms of, let me go ahead and put this out here for you guys, in terms of the ecosystems that they actually work with. So someone like me, who is used to the native experience using bulky hardware, I'm open to the possibility of not always having bulky hardware, as what I, use from my experience, right? So once in a while, if I'm, say, in a situation where I want to leverage convenience, I can leverage that convenience and I can play whichever games I want. Now, again, the, conversation goes kind of weird because there are people on the PlayStation side whom, they've somewhat identified with this locked ecosystem thing. It's kind of been a thing that defined the way they engage with gaming and all of the above. And as much as they may think that somewhere, somehow, they are, looking out for the best in terms of gaming and such. I don't know, man. I think they may be mistaken in some case about this whole thing, because when you kind of think about it, when you go ahead and you put it into perspective, that whole paradigm is already gone. It's a goner. It doesn't necessarily mean anything anymore for anyone. Like, if you think about it, in this particular paradigm, let me go to desktop mode and get my mouse out. If you think about it, at any paradigm in this particular instance, you're in a whole different framework, because this is where gaming is going. This is where the service part of gaming is going, because the customer is going to be served. The customer is going to get that, priority in terms of everything that, you're doing. So those who may, be somewhat threatened that Xboxes will now start playing PlayStation games once you get the Xbox Ally X, I think you might want to think farther and bigger than that, because the entire thing, let me go ahead and turn the volume down. Because the entire thing is actually based on, the fact that the gamer wants to be served wherever it is that they are, right? And if the gamer wants to be served wherever it is that they are, you, as the business that wants to make money, you have to take your service to where that gamer is so that you can pretty much give them what it is that they're looking for. And AMD, seeing this opportunity, understands that it can offload hardware, offload technology, do all that, have now basically decided, or maybe they were invited to dial in, and dial in they are. As you're seeing that even this whole moniker thing, or I guess I'll call it this little, whatchamacallit, is showing kind of like a, an example of what this is going to look like, but this is all Xbox's games. And if Xbox were to leverage the digital library of the Xbox One and all of that to bring into the Xbox app and get the licenses all flowing, and developers would be happy to be able to resell games that they sold, 12, 13, 14, 15 years ago, if they own the licenses, with very minimal stress to people who may want to buy them and have a way around, the fact that emulation is basically eating their lunch when it actually comes down to it. I guarantee you, they're going to be happy, man. They're not going to say no to that possibility. That potential for them, oh my gosh, it's going to be an easy thing for them to basically, leverage at the end of the day, because why would they not want to make money, right? Why would they not want to leverage and get gamers where gamers are going to be paying them a bunch of dough, when it comes down to it? So this is what some people are scared of, but I say the people who are scared of this stuff are people who have maybe made some kind of a daily routine out of constantly making it seem like, the old ways, the classic locked ecosystem is this new thing, when in reality, that's not the case, man. The reality here right now is that you, as a gamer, will be served by the developers and the companies and the publishers and the platform holders and the hardware manufacturers who wish to take your money on your own terms. And if your terms say, I want to be able to game on good old hardware with all of the, big and huge graphics and all that, or I want to be able to take my games where I'm going whenever I choose to, and whichever library I choose to own that game on, those are the people that are going to get your money. Those are the people that look like they want your money. I mean, anybody else that's telling you have to play on our terms, that person, good luck to them. Maybe there might be people who enjoy what they offer, and that's PlayStation and Nintendo. But Nintendo done covered itself by innovating and coming to the handheld side. So Nintendo's got that piece of the puzzle covered. The other piece of the puzzle that Nintendo is going to have to be worrying about is the piece of, okay, are we able to pretty much, compete with the entire plethora of every third-party developer out there who is open to, getting their games to more people. Whereas if people can find out that they can buy a third-party game on Steam or Good Old Games or Xbox or wherever else, right? Except PlayStation so far anyways, and can play those games anywhere, why would they come and give us 30% in our own ecosystem? And can we make enough first-party games to sustain our ecosystem with that barrage of games? Those are questions that Nintendo is going to need to answer. However, they seem like they're even much more covered and have kicked off this new thing with the handheld mania now, which, it took a while for everybody to kind of dial in, but they kicked it off, and it's, it's seemingly working for them at this particular point in time. All right, I'm out of here. Talk to me in the comment section. What do you think so far about all of this? I appreciate your time and audience. Thanks so much for watching, and hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.